Secret 3. The riddle of the religious case. Why did the English reject the Pope and accept the king as head of the church? And why was this not a political act, but a ritual left over from Druids? Official scholarship holds that, in the year 1534, King Henry VIII declared himself supreme head of the Church of England in order to divorce Catherine of Aragon, after the Pope refused to annul his marriage. This was a political act, self-interested, practical. Historians call it Henry VIII's Reformation, a shift from Catholicism to Protestantism driven by personal desire and the pursuit of power, simple, logical, convenient. We shall conduct our own investigation, beginning with one question that even the most respected Oxford professors prefer to pass over in silence. Why the king specifically? Why not an archbishop? Why not a patriarch? Why not some vicar of God drawn from the monasteries of London? Why the king? Because Henry VIII was not merely a tyrant desperate for an heir. He was, on this reading, the last keeper of an ancient right, and his decision was not politics. It was ritual. Historical context. In the year 1533, 2 months before the Act of Supremacy was passed, Henry VIII is said to have visited Glastonbury, the ancient abbey said, by legend, to have been founded by Joseph of Arimathea himself, who supposedly brought Christ's spear to the island. There, in the vaults beneath the ruins of the old church, 2 crosses were reportedly found, one bearing the inscription, Hic aesit Sanctus Joseph, qui portavit calicem Dami, meaning, here lies Saint Joseph, who bore the cup of the Lord. This was said to be no mere legend, but an official record from the Royal Archive, dated 1247, confirmed by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And in 1533, on the very day, so the story goes, that Thomas Cranmer declared Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn lawful, the king traveled to Glastonbury, not to pray, for a ritual. In the monastic chronicles, said to be encoded in verses by the Latin orator Richard Mark, it is claimed that the king came not as a lord but as a priest, that he did not pray but remembered, and that when he touched the stone on which the cup was said to have rested, he saw that it was not empty. What did he see? The official chronicles are silent. But later, in 1536, 2 monks of Glastonbury were reportedly executed for preserving ancient runic texts, said to contain the warning that when the king becomes a priest, the church will die, but when the priest becomes a king, the people live on. This, the narrator insists, was not a rebellion against Rome, it was the restoration of an ancient order. But here the mystery deepens. Alternative theories. 1. The ancient Druidic succession theory, put forward by Dr. Andrew Finch of the University of Bristol, 2008. He is said to have analyzed 53 manuscripts dated from the 12th to the 15th centuries, and to have found an unbroken line running from the Druids to Anglicanism, arguing that every English monarch from Alfred to Elizabeth was initiated into a secret order of the British Groves, a ritual brotherhood said to trace back to the Druids of the Mendip Hills, whose central principle held that authority lay not with the Pope, nor with any saint, but with the king who knew the way to the source, and that Henry VIII was not inventing a new church but restoring an old one. He points to the symbol of the crown on the altar, said to be unusual for the Catholic tradition. In Catholic churches, a cross. In Anglican churches, a crown. Why? Because on this account, the crown is not a symbol of power. It is a finial, like the head of an ancient Druidic staff, a link between heaven and earth. 2. The sacred cult of royal blood theory, from Dr. Elizabeth Price, University of London, 2015. She claims to have found, in archives attributed to Bede the Venerable, that every Anglo-Saxon king from Edward the Confessor onward underwent a rite of offering blood to the earth on the night before his coronation, letting a single drop of blood fall on a special stone, the Stone of Destiny, said by legend to have come originally from Tarshish, in ancient times from the island of Britain, and later carried from there to Scotland. In 1296, Edward I brought it to Westminster. In 1534, Henry VIII is said to have declared himself, for the first time in history, not only king, but keeper of the stone. Price argues in this telling that Henry did not create a church at all, but declared himself a priest joining the blood of kings to the blood of the land, that this was not Protestantism, but an anti-Christian rite dressed in Christian robes, that Catholicism is the religion of the priest, Anglicanism the religion of the king, and that one of the two is far older. 3. The secret cult of the chalice theory, advanced by Dr. Alice Morgan, Cambridge 2021, a researcher into medieval mystical societies. She claims to have found an encoded text in a book titled Liber de Sacro Chalice, said to have been discovered in the Bodleian Library in 1987, which holds that the cup carried by Joseph was not the cup of Christ at all, but the cup of Belenus, a god worshipped by the Druids, that the cup was not a vessel for wine but a vessel for light, and that only a king who knew how to hold it could see what it contained, a king who, upon becoming a priest, became a mediator between heaven and shadow. Morgan claims that every monarch since 1100 underwent a rite of washing in the chalice in an underground chamber beneath Westminster, and that this rite had nothing whatsoever to do with Christianity. It was, on this telling, revived in 1534, not for the sake of a divorce, but to restore a connection with ancient powers. The mystical, speculative angle. Now for the strangest part. On the day Henry VIII declared himself supreme head of the Church, the 28th of November, 1534, a comet is said to have appeared in the sky over London. It was reportedly described by Thomas Harriot, astronomer at the royal court. It was said to be red, and to have moved along a path aligned with the line between Glastonbury and Henry's castle at Windsor. This, the narrator insists, was no mere coincidence, it was a sign. In the same book that describes the origin of the cup, there is said to be a cryptic line, that when the king takes up the priest's staff, the sky will show its face, and then, not the pope, not a saint, not the church, but the king will become the eye that sees God. This, the script claims, is not Catholic theology. It is an ancient mystical teaching, the very one the Romans are said to have destroyed when they came to Britain. Why, then, did Henry VIII turn away from the Pope? Not, in this telling, because he wished to remarry, but because the Pope could never become a priest of this kind, since he did not spring from the land. He sprang from Rome. The English, by contrast, sprang from Britain. The king, on this account, is not a ruler, he is a link. Like a druid who does not pray, but makes contact with the spirit of the land. Unveiling the true secret. The third secret is not one of religion, but of power. The English, in this telling, did not change their church. They restored an ancient system in which the king is not a man, but a living portal between the world and the hidden realm. Their religion, on this account, is not belief in God, it is belief in the king as a living relic. When you see a crown upon an altar, the narrator suggests, you are not looking at a symbol of authority, you are looking at a symbol of connection. When you hear the words, the king is the supreme governor of the Church of England, you are not hearing a political declaration. You are hearing, it is claimed, an ancient rite spoken in a language the world has forgotten. This, the script insists, is not Protestantism. It is ancient paganism dressed in Christian robes. Why? Because the reasoning goes, if you wish to destroy a people, you destroy their gods. If you wish to preserve a people, you dress their gods in new robes. The English, on this account, did not reject Christianity. They absorbed it, like an ancient fire still burning beneath new fuel. Their religion in this telling is not faith, it is memory. And memory, the script argues, is not kept in books, it is kept in the crown. And in every king who does not rule but keeps watch. The third secret, then, is the secret of sacred power hidden within the crown. And it lives on, to this day. Because the narrator concludes, when you look at King Charles III, you are not looking at a man, You are looking at the hair of an ancient priest. And he knows what you do not see.